Coming to you from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing in the mornings at 5 a.m. on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter. Welcome to the Gailey Show. Welcome back to the Gailey Show. I am your host, Sean Parker. It's just after the bottom of the hour. Joining me in studio now is our executive producer, Jim Pounds.
Good morning, Chicago. Good afternoon, Twin Cities.
And good evening. What is that? Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Mrs. McGillicuddy, wherever you are.
Well, to start, I want to say that in the Twin Cities for Pride Month, Queer Gaze presents Pride at Imagine Willow Creek. So Queer Gaze is excited to once again partner with Imagine Willow Creek Theater to showcase a series of queer films this June, 4 of them. Get ready to laugh, cheer, and shed a joyful tear with us on Sundays at 2 p.m. when we celebrate queer films new and old. This Sunday, June 1st, they will be screening Bonus Track. This British coming-of-age romantic comedy is set in 2006 and follows 16-year-old George, who is too busy daydreaming about becoming a famous musician to stay on top of his studies during the final year of school. His talent goes unnoticed until he meets Max, the new transfer student and son of famous rock star parents. Max uses his knowledge of music to help George prep for the talent show. You can get your tickets at imagine-entertainment.com/queergaze. That's a long hyperlink, so we're including it in the show notes and in the description of this episode. So you can go to am950radio.com or heartlandsignal.com, look up today's episode, or you can go to our Blue Skies. We'll include the link there as well. So we're at thegaileyshow.org on Blue Skies. So many ways for you to connect with that. Or just Google Queer Gaze Imagine with an E, and you'll find info and tickets there. We actually saw Bonus Track a couple months ago, I think.
Yeah.
And I thought that we reviewed it here. And so I've been looking up all the episodes and I can't find that we actually reviewed it. So maybe in my head we reviewed it. So folks, you're going to get another, if we did do it, you can hear it again right now because we want to preview what's coming up. But this is a film that was directed by Julia Jackman, written by Mike Gilbert and Josh O'Connor. I'm going to have thoughts about that in a second about Joshy. Stars Joe Anders and Samuel Paul Small. So Joe Anders is actually the son of Kate Winslet. This is his first starring role in a movie, and it is really sweet. So it follows the high school rom-com formula, which is predictable, but that's exactly what I love about rom-coms, and so that's why I liked this movie.
Right.
I also really appreciated that George is just like average, and in some instances, I mean, when you see the parent-teacher conferences, he's below average in his classes. Like the teachers are like, dude, what's going on here? And telling the parents, like, you got to do something here, right? But I think that's so nice that George is average, because it's not like everybody's talking about Jamie, right? Where Jamie has to be fabulous and a musical superstar and everything has to be amazing. And, we have to be the smartest person in the room or the flashiest person in the room. And I just love how average George is in this movie. And his, will they, won't they, burning romance with Max is also very well done. I liked that it built up the way it was supposed to do. There was a little bit of, anti-LGBTQ lines in there. It's not a lot, actually, which is, it's nice. It's sort of there, but, not the focus of it.
I appreciated that Max, the son of famous people, which stereotypically is usually a jerk, right? I mean, an entitled jerk. And this guy was not that. He was actually very patient and very kind and very nurturing and very encouraging. He seemed to be exactly written, I think, exactly to the opposite of the stereotype, where you have somebody fanboying over someone who's arrogant and hard to like.
That thing where he's like, I'm just trying to be a normal person.
Yeah, but he seemed to, it just didn't seem like he was extraordinarily talented, and I appreciated that too. Just because he's the son of somebody talented doesn't necessarily mean that he's extraordinary, in real life. So I thought this was very, like you said, realistic. The lead character was realistically flawed, and the person he was enamored of was realistically more human maybe than a stereotype. And I thought that's what made this relationship interesting to see how it would evolve, because it didn't start out in the place you would expect. So you figured, well, maybe this will turn out someplace I don't expect. I really like I think the writing was the strength of the film for me.
Yeah, I agree, and I liked the film, and so I was very pleased to see that this was going to be the first film to kick off Queer Gaze's 4 films that they will be screening at Imagine Willow Creek. So we didn't. That review is not set up for you to be like, oh well, they knew about it, and so they gave an amazing review. We actually watched it a while ago, and you just heard our thoughts on the film. So bonus track at Imagine Willow Creek Theater here in the Twin Cities. You can go to imagine-entertainment.com/queergaze to get your tickets and to learn more about it. You can also get tickets if you just show up there at Imagine Willow Creek as well.
Yeah, which is a great thing that doesn't get enough attention. And we all, I think John and I both agree about that, that what Queer Gaze does is wonderful for folks who don't want to go through all the trouble of trying to find a gay film. Here's somebody who curates it for you, and you get a wide variety of experiences, and they're not all, again, one stereotype. They're all over the place, and I like that. They're eclectic.
I don't think that we should be watching movies on our phones.
Well, I don't either.
We watched on TV, right? So it was on a streaming service, which I can't remember which one it was.
I don't either.
But here's an opportunity to see it. Do you remember the brouhaha over Bros?
Yes.
And it was in like theaters for like a week and a day, and it didn't do well in box office, and so it was considered an absolute disaster. And then there was all the finger pointing. And so, what I also love about this series is that how often do we get to go to the movie theaters and see a film like this one? It is a small indie film, queer little rom-com. It wouldn't get a huge, release in movie theaters. So here's an opportunity for us to go to the movies and to enjoy ourselves and to see our stories, reflected back at us. And so I think that this is a darling little film. I don't mean that be patronizing type of way. It is a cute film, a good meet cute as well in there. And you could go and check it out.
Yeah, it's interesting that Josh was part of producing it. He certainly didn't have much of a role in it.
Let's talk about that, Queen.
Well, because I want to give him creds for doing it, for producing it and getting a voice out there. I'm not sure what he has to do with it, except I think
Josh is obsessed with us.
I know, because I think he's gay. Like
not
so
like
many people.
Jim and I, but like he's obsessed with the queer community.
Yeah.
I mean, Star of God's Own Country. Is in another movie about the interviewing LGBTQ people across the United States. Was in the sort of queer but not really queer tennis movie from last year, Challengers.
Yeah.
And now is writing a queer rom-com coming out story, and he has a little cameo in it as well.
Well, isn't he doing a love story with Andrew Garfield? I mean, there's another gay guy, I think.
He's just really invested in telling LGBTQ stories, which, right. I mean...
Thank you, I guess.
But I
think there's more to that story than that. But who knows? There's so many of them that get right up to the doorway, and they don't knock. I don't know why. They just stand there outside. I don't get it. But anyway, I was glad that he did it. It was a good film. It was not something that was going to get seen by any major studio. So
I just don't know a straight person who's this committed to telling the stories.
I don't either.
Either on screen as an actor or as a writer.
He's a real ally.
LGBTQ community.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
draw your own conclusions.
Yeah.
What else are we going to talk about?
Drawing your own conclusions. So last Friday on HBO Max, they debuted the 2-part series Pee-wee as Himself.
Yay!
It's not a series; it's a documentary in 2 episodes.
Yep.
And I was shocked, actually, at a lot of the things that I learned in there. I was not expecting. I grew up on Pee-wee's Playhouse, so I, was a kid when it came out, and it was campy, it was wild. I thought it was hilarious. I always enjoyed it. It was over the top. And so to learn, and there are things about Paul Reubens that I knew. Everybody knows about the quote unquote exposing himself situation. that he went through, and
Yeah.
then there was the so-called allegations of having child pornography.
Yeah.
And so he does get into that. Something I liked what the filmmakers did, the title is Pee-wee as himself.
Mm-hmm.
So the interviews that the documentary filmmaker who, and I'm going to pull that up in a second, but I liked the style where he interviewed Paul Rubens, so that Paul Rubens was always talking to the camera.
Yes,
And the director is Matt Wolf.
Oh.
And Matt did a really great job of kind of pulling out this enigma of Paul and highlighting that, even just in how Paul was, talking about the responding to the questions that Matt was coming up with. And you could tell that Paul was not used to giving up creative control, because he keeps talking about that. And he's like, why can't I make my own documentary? And the studios won't let me do that. And so now I have to, get my life told at me by someone else. Why can't I just tell my own life? But apparently that's frowned upon. And I'm like, well, there's memoirs, why aren't there like memoir type versions of documentaries? Anyway, it's a faux pas, as it turns out. But things that I learned, I'm going to go back and watch the Christmas special. I hadn't actually seen the Pee-wee special, Christmas special. So that's something that I want to go see. I did not know that Tim Burton directed the first Pee-wee film. I did not know that the Pee-wee Herman show started as a late night in-person, like theatrical production at the Groundlings.
Yep.
And I did not know that Paul Rubens was this collector of TV memorabilia and film memorabilia. I mean, just this huge collection that he had that was like museum quality.
Yeah.
And so you really got to see the who he was and how he created things, but also things I didn't know. Paul Rubens, like before he really committed to his career, was living openly as a gay man in a relationship, very domestically, and then made a decision that I thought was, tragic. And then he said, I have to choose between my relationship and pursuing a career. And he chose going after the career and broke up with his partner.
But even more unusual is that he chose to maintain this character. He wanted never to be interviewed as himself, but always as his character. And you could see talk shows or whoever in this very odd perspective of going, I want to really ask you about things, Paul, but I can't because you're Pee-wee. And it was either mercurial or it was a little nutty, or both. And it was fascinating to watch him walk that line.
Yeah. I don't want to give it away. I don't want to explain why he said, what I mean? No. I want folks to go and watch it and to hear why he made that decision.
Yeah.
But essentially he went right back into the closet and was pretty intense about it. And so what I knew was that he had the allegations were that he exposed himself in a movie theater. Now, when I heard exposed at the time, I thought, oh, that's weird. He was like going up to a random person and just flashing his genitalia at them. Like that's what I thought was exposure was. As I learned to watch, and that was my bad that I didn't actually get into the details of the story.
Well, don't go into too many details.
But what you learn is that where he was in a
porno theater.
Gay porno theater.
Yeah.
And was,
yes.
Yeah.
And they just came upon. He wasn't flashing
making
anybody.
Jim uncomfortable even saying this
because he wasn't flashing,
but he wasn't
exposing himself to anyone.
Yeah, he wasn't like.
No, that's right.
He
might have been doing something inappropriate.
You can have your thoughts and feelings about a gay porno theater, right? They have existed in the culture, and usually what it is that you are there. There's other men in the room, but you're not interacting with each other.
Right.
Typically, you know what I mean. You're watching a movie and doing your thing.
Right.
And so it was raided by the cops, and they made a big deal out of it, and they arrested him, and they made a whole thing.
Right.
And the thing that got me was that it ended up being like a fine of $50.
And he was registered as a sex offender.
No, that was not that one.
Oh, wasn't that one?
We have to take a break.
Okay.
We're final break, but there's still lots to get to here on The Gaily Show. We're going to wrap up on Pee-wee, and we're going to talk about Liza, a truly terrific, absolutely true story, and Hacks Season 3. Stay tuned. You are listening to The Gaily Show on AM 950 KTNF and WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
I don't think you're never going to get through all that.
Yeah, we are.
No, you're not.
Okay.
I'm just not going to say anything.
Let's go. Welcome back to the Gaily Show. I am your host, John Parker. We're coming up on the top of the hour. I'm in studio with my executive producer, Jim Pounds. We are talking about some reviews for you. We're going to wrap up our review here of Pee-wee as himself, available on HBO Max as a 2-part docu-series. And so, he was arrested. There was the $50 fine, moves on with his life. Starts doing some really interesting, film roles. Starts doing interviews as Paul Rubens, not as Pee Wee Herman anymore. And then there is this allegation that he has child pornography. And his house is raided by the cops. And now recall what I said earlier. He has a museum worth of stuff. And as it turns out, he also had a museum's worth of LGBTQ magazines and all sorts of different magazines, artwork, etc. The cops confiscated all of it. And according to his lawyer, his attorney, there was one piece of material. It was a photo that they were like, this could be underage. Maybe it's not. $100 fine. But the DA in Los Angeles was campaigning and decided to make a case out of Pee-wee, or Paul Rubens, rather. And so now again, you have that this, and Paul didn't want to fight it. And in my mind, I'm like, you should fight it. You should absolutely fight it. And so, Jim, you're like doing whatever you want right now. Like,
well, because we don't have time. We're never going to get to this other thing. Yeah, it was both times.
And that one was $100 fine, and he had to register on the sex offender
both
list.
Times he got involved with the police, it was abusive, unnecessary, borderline illegal, and yet the reputation gets out there that there's something the matter with him.
You mean
and it
borderline illegal of what he was?
It was something the matter with the police in both cases. It was bias against him as a gay man, not legal enforcement. And in either case, shame on the DA, shame on the police officers, shame on all of them. Yeah. And not on Pee-wee.
It was,
frankly.
It was very tragic. And what we don't know, and this is stated at the beginning of the series, nobody knew that when they were filming it that he had cancer. And so he passed away before the end of the interview process. And so they've, then released it now. This year they finished and wrapped it up. But it is highly worth it. 5 out of 5 stars for me.
Go catch it.
Right. All right. So Liza, a truly terrific, absolutely true story, is on PBS, also available on Prime Video. This is a documentary film. Just go see it. 5 out of 5 stars. Liza, gay icon. Did not realize that, like her, the role that made her famous and will always be associated with her, Sally Bowles, in Cabaret, that Sally was with gay men, closeted, and that's basically who Liza married. Like throughout her life, it was crazy how much her love life resembled Sally Bowles.
It's like,
but
you
have this impression of Liza Minnelli, and I appreciated in this documentary the work ethic that was brought to the fore. Like you really saw what she went through to be who she ended up being, and to be, I would argue, maybe more successful than her mother, but it's not a competition. That's not the situation here. But I really appreciated how Bruce David Klein, the writer and the director, divvied up the film based off of the important relationships that Liza had, and how, okay, let's talk about this relationship and what it did for her, like Bob Fosse. Let's talk about this relationship and this relationship. And you just, as it goes along, you see through these relationships, and this argument that Bruce David Klein is making is that Liza is unique, but she had this really great way of pulling in folks that were super creative and creating these relationships with them to also create Liza Minnelli. And it is just absolutely fascinating. And there's obviously the relationship with Bob Fosse. There's the relationship with Charles Aznavour, the famous French singer, and what she learned from him in terms of musical interpretation. Amazing, and great to see her again and the work that she's doing and how innovative that she was. Like her ongoing role at Arrested Development. It's a really special documentary. So definitely 5 out of 5 stars. What do you say, Jim?
Highly recommended.
Highly recommend. What's your rating?
Yeah, it's 5. I mean, if you like Liza, you get more Liza than you knew about, and
yeah,
so she's definitely an icon. Absolutely.
On HBO Max, the 3rd season of Hacks finally debuted. I know that we're a few episodes into this already, and this review is based off of, I think, 3 episodes that we've watched. They've got the night show. Deborah Vance has her Tonight Show, and it is not going well. The performances are amazing. Obviously, from the cast is exactly what you would expect from these actors and these from Jean Smart and Hannah Einbender. I did not like the writing choice to have them be in conflict for the first few episodes of the season. I get how it does create some comedy, but it just felt contrived. Like, we have to do the thing where they always have to be fighting each other. And it just felt like after this much time from where they started to where they're at now, that this level of conflict feels more forced than it is natural. And I think there were choices that both Deborah and Jean Smart's character and Hannah Einbender's character make that I could see why that would lead to friction. But I felt at this point that the bond would have overcome some of the really harsh things that they say to each other and the things that they choose to do to each other, which are funny. That's not, there are very funny things that happen, but I
think they were trying to put Ava, Hannah's character, in an awkward learning. She was kind of the wise one, and now she
bribes
in over her head
Deborah to become showrunner.
But she's now the one
producer,
having trouble holding it all together, and I think they were trying to reverse that. Is what you're saying. I want to mention Mark.
Funny. Mark and Rosie O'Donnell cameo.
I want to mention Mark Indelicato, who is a gay man, also on the show.
Well, that is all for us today. You can keep the gay going all weekend long. On Saturday afternoon is Pride on AM 950. On Sunday, Out Chicago on WCPT 820. 5 amazing shows to keep it gay with the community all weekend long. That's all for us right now. Until Monday, keep it queer, America.
Keep it queer.